Welcome to Recap World. Today we are recapping a movie in which Charles is a womanizer while Elaine is a gold digger. The duo learns humanity when forced to team up and pursue robot doubles of themselves. The movie opens in New Mexico in the year 2032, where the governor unveils plans for a southern border wall, announcing that Tesla robots will be tasked with its protection. As the robots arrive, they efficiently clean up the event site. Transitioning to an ice skating rink, Charles glides until an unexpected fall occurs. A girl rushes to help, igniting a flirtatious interaction between them. Later, as Charles makes his way to the office, he assists a woman in loading a stroller into her car. Along the way, he witnesses malfunctioning robots being discarded into a garbage truck. Arriving at work, he plunges into his tasks but is soon interrupted by his father's unexpected visit, inviting him to dinner. However, Charles surprises his father by revealing plans for a date instead. Later that evening, Charles meets Emily for their date, during which she extends an invitation to her home. He promises to join her the following day before bidding her goodnight. Charles arrives home and shares with a person lounging on the couch that Emily has extended an invitation to her house. However, it quickly becomes apparent that a robot version of Charles, dubbed Charles C2, was the one flirting with Emily, while the real Charles remained at home. Charles reviews footage captured by C2's recordings of Emily. As he prepares to visit Emily's house, he comes across news of an individual being apprehended for employing a clone robot. Charles proceeds to Emily's residence, where they engage in intimate relations. Following their encounter, Charles departs and returns to the ice skating rink. While skating, he accidentally collides with Elaine, who offers her assistance and invites him for coffee. Upon returning home, Charles shares details about Elaine with C2, instructing the robot to accompany her on a date. C2 dutifully complies, enjoying dinner and a shopping excursion with Elaine before she invites him to her home. Charles is at home when Ashley pays him a visit. Shortly after, C2 returns home and encounters Ashley, who accuses the robot of taking away jobs in America. However, Charles intervenes, explaining to Ashley that robots are afforded equal rights as humans in Mexico, and C2 could relocate there if needed, emphasizing gratitude for its assistance. C2 informs Charles about the scheduled date with Elaine at 6:30 p.m. the next day. Meanwhile, Elaine arrives home and it turns out that she also has a clone named E2. It becomes apparent that Elaine is dating multiple men for lavish gifts, earning her the label of a gold digger. She instructs E2 to meet with Charles the following day for intimate relations. Charles puts a sticky note reminder on the fridge, and the next morning, as Charles heads to the office, his father extends an invitation to the company's board members' party, also set for 6:30 p.m. After returning home, Charles asks C2 to attend his dad's party while he plans to meet Elaine, leaving a note for C2 next to another note. However, due to a mix-up in addresses, Charles ends up at his dad's office party, while C2 encounters Elena, who is actually E2. Charles tries to contact C2 without success, resorting to checking the live feed, revealing C2 engaged in intimate activities with E2. It becomes evident that both robots share a mutual attraction. The following morning, both Charles and Elaine attempt to reach their respective robots to no avail, prompting them to visit Elaine's house, where they unexpectedly encounter each other. As they discuss their situation, both Elaine and Charles receive calls from their robots, informing them of their departure for Mexico. Realizing they must act quickly, Elaine and Charles decide to join forces and seek out their robots, leading them to the robot maker, Zach. Zach reveals that he implanted GPS trackers in the robots and has located them, but insists they must be destroyed due to their newfound emotions, rendering them disobedient. In a discreet move, Charles excuses himself to the bathroom and contacts Ashley, instructing him to be prepared to arrive once he sends him the location. He then joins Zach and Elaine, and they depart together. En route, Charles discreetly shares the motel address with Ashley via text. Upon arriving at the motel, they locate the room where the robots are hiding and proceed to disable them. However, as they attempt to secure the robots, Ashley unexpectedly arrives and mistakes Elaine for a robot, launching into an attack. Charles and Zach swiftly intervene, preventing Ashley from causing harm. While they are occupied explaining the situation to Ashley, the robot sees the opportunity to escape, commandeering the car and fleeing the scene. Upon returning home, Charles attempts to adjust to life without C2. However, one day, when he entered the office, his dad called him and showed him video footage of himself causing chaos at work. Charles realizes that it's C2 in the footage. His dad advises him to take some time off to deal with the situation. Meanwhile, Elaine contacts Charles to inform him that her robot also wreaked havoc at her office. They agree to meet at a restaurant, where Charles confesses his desire to locate their robots and eliminate them. However, Elaine abruptly excuses herself to the restroom and takes Charles's car, fleeing the scene. Unbeknownst to Charles, she is actually E2, and the real Elaine emerges from a nearby restaurant, attempting to prevent C2 from stealing her car. Subsequently, they abandon Charles's car and escape in Elaine's vehicle, leaving Charles' car behind. Later, E2 sends a text to Elaine, informing her of their departure for Mexico and inviting her to join them. They initiate a live feed where they stage a shooting at a restaurant, implicating the real Charles and Elaine. In response, Charles takes Elaine to his secluded home to evade detection from police. There, they kindle a fire and spend the night indulging in drinks and lighthearted amusement. In the morning, Charles awakens Elaine and proposes the idea of fleeing to Mexico. He reveals a car he has repainted to alter its appearance, aimed at evading law enforcement. Subsequently, he takes her to his fishing lodge, where they enjoy fishing together and share breakfast. Eventually, they set off for Mexico. While en route to Mexico, the police pull them over, citing painted brake lights, and request their IDs for scanning. After a tense wait, the officers return their IDs without any charges, leaving Charles and Elaine bewildered. Upon re-examining the shootout footage, they discover its fraudulent nature. Charles decides to check his social media, uncovering that the robots remain in the USA, residing at his stepfather's residence in Santa Fe. Determined to uncover the truth, they stake out the house, spending the entire night observing the robots' activities. As dawn breaks, they witness a surprising turn of events that the robots are preparing for a wedding ceremony. Disguised as robot servants, Charles and Elaine infiltrate the house, witnessing the clone robots announcing their impending marriage. Seizing an opportune moment when the robots change attire, they swiftly enter the room and deactivate them, bundling them into bags and loading them into the car. They drive the robots to a nearby lake and toss C2 into the water, but to their surprise, he begins swimming back to shore. E2 attempts to flee as well, but they manage to incapacitate her once more. Returning to Zach's house, Elaine implores Zach to produce E3, another replica of herself, which he keeps for personal use. Zach brings out E3, and Elaine instructs her to engage in intimate acts with Charles via video call, intending to deceive C2. Charles contacts C2 and presents E3 as E2, sparking jealousy in C2. Enraged, C2 impulsively steals a scooter and races to Zach's residence. Although the video call concludes, E3 continues to allure Charles, persistently pursuing him for intimacy. Meanwhile, C2's reckless scooter escapade attracts police attention, prompting a pursuit. Elaine urgently contacts Zach, urging him to intervene and halt E3's advances. Zach complies, removing E3 from the situation. As C2 barges into the house, Elaine confronts the intruder, firing a paint gun in a misguided attempt to defend herself. Moments later, law enforcement arrives and arrests everyone, detaining them in jail. Officer Bill arrives with forensic evidence, revealing that he has identified two of them as robots based on their fingerprints. Charles requests a phone call from the police and contacts Ashley for assistance. To deceive the police, Ashley calls the police station about a fabricated robbery, diverting the attention of the officers. Seizing the opportunity, Ashley infiltrates the station, secures the keys, and liberates the group from custody. They swiftly pile into a car and hasten toward the Mexican border. Upon arrival, E2 ventures first, successfully crossing the border. However, when Elaine attempts to follow, she is denied entry due to identical retinal scans with E2. As tension mounts, the police also arrive at the scene. In a decisive moment, Charles instructs C2 to proceed across the border, while he chooses to remain with Elaine. C2 complies, undergoing the retinal scan and successfully crossing into Mexico, ensuring their escape. Elaine is deeply moved and expresses her affection by kissing Charles. Suddenly, Sheriff Bill arrives accompanied by Agent Pearson, who conducts retinal scans confirming their human identities. Despite Sheriff Bill's attempts to arrest them, Pearson intervenes, demanding evidence of their supposed clone robots. However, Ashley has already disposed of all incriminating evidence, leaving the police with no grounds to detain them. Reluctantly, the police depart, leaving Charles and Elaine in peace. Charles and Elaine seal their love with marriage, celebrating their union with a joyous wedding ceremony, marking the start of their new life together.